Hey, and welcome to the Bowls of Life podcast. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Virginia. As we've gone through life, we've learned something important.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we have. Life, it's messy. There are a lot of armchair experts out there who will try to tell you how to make life simple.
But it's not, so you won't find any of that here. Instead, you'll find everyday people who have jumped into the mess of life and are making an adventure of it.
Boom! Nailed it. Love it. We are back with the Bowls of Life podcast after I believe, right at a month break, give or take.
Was it a whole month?
Yes, it was.
Wow.
We wrapped up episode 25 back in early March. I don't remember the exact day. And now we're post-Easter, and we are back. We're kicking off a new series and everything.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yes. So last series was the big picture of the Bible, tracing the storyline of the Bible or something like that. I don't know. I got the title of that book wrong literally every time we talked about it. But that was a lot of fun. But Bible world, while you are super knowledgeable about it, is technically probably my world just because I got a degree in it. This time we are jumping into a series that really falls more into your world.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness. And specifically on today's episode, we're going to spend a little time talking about how those 8 dimensions come from more of a Christian perspective, because it is something that was designed in a clinical setting, but we're going to take it and apply it in a Christian setting. And then at the end of the episode, we're going to have a big announcement about the podcast, but you're going to have to hang out to hear about that. So Virginia, wellness, what is it? All right, well, Virginia, wellness, what is it?
Well, one way to explain it is that wellness is an active pursuit of health.
Okay.
And the thing is that there are 8 dimensions of wellness that we can be seeking health in. And we're going to talk about those 8 dimensions here in a little bit. But, our wellness pursuit, that active process, is the goal is to improve, right? To improve ourselves, to better our well-being, to better our life. And the goal is health, and wellness is the active process of achieving it. That is something that I read. But if you think about it, wellness is, when God... So there's a scripture in the Bible, I think it's John 10:10 or 1 John 10:10. It says that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but Jesus came so that we could have life and have it abundantly. And so, you think about what does it mean to have abundant life, and I always kind of use that in my definition and pursuit of health and wellness is what is it that Jesus died for, and what is that abundant life that he wants me to have. And so in what ways can I actively pursue well-being and health in each of these dimensions? So with that being said, what are the 8 dimensions of wellness? Let's just name them straight off. So there's the physical dimension, intellectual, emotional, social, spiritual, occupational, financial, and environmental. Feels like a lot, but we're going to break them down and just kind of give you a brief overview of what those dimensions are all about. So, start with physical.
Yes, physical, that one's pretty straightforward. It's your body, and it's staying healthy now and also towards the future. So, taking care of your body.
Yeah. Okay. So intellectual is to grow intellectually, to grow the brain, grow your knowledge, and always just be curious. Stay curious.
There's emotional wellness, and I think emotional wellness is about understanding, respecting your own feelings, your values, your attitudes, but it's also about learning how to understand, respect, and other people's emotions as well. And so kind of learning to manage that as part of that understanding and respecting of your emotions.
Right. So the social dimension is all about maintaining those healthy relationships with others, enjoying being around others, developing those friendships and intimate relationships. caring about others, and also contributing to your community.
Right, yes. Spiritual wellness is about finding new life in Jesus, or as you just put it from John 10:10, it's about finding that abundant life in Jesus. Ultimately, all of the world was created through him and for him, thus our spiritual life is about Jesus.
Right. So occupational wellness, this is just being a part of a career or a job that not only brings, maybe some personal satisfaction and enjoyment, where your passions lie, but it also utilizes your unique skills, talents, and it's something that is meaningful to you. And in the Christian perspective, it's where God has called you.
Yep. Then there's the financial dimension. So you're learning to manage your resources, to live within your means, to make wise financial decisions, and to kind of help and be aware of other people when they need help in their financial life as well.
And last but not least, environmental, which is probably the most difficult to explain. But if you can just think about your environment, your social environment, the people around you, the natural environment, like the actual material things that are in your area, and also the built environment as well, and how those things do actually affect your health and well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the 8 dimensions of wellness, and we're going to kind of dig into what those look like from a Christian perspective right after this break. All right, so we gave you kind of the very clinical definitions of each of these different dimensions of wellness, but how are we going to define it from more of a Christian perspective of wellness?
I think first we have to realize the difference of the motivation and the goals behind wellness and pursuing well-being as a Christian, and then, as someone who is not a Christian.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me a little bit about maybe the clinical motivations then.
So kind of like I mentioned earlier, wellness is like that pursuit of, enhancing your well-being. Clinically, the motivation comes from just getting the most out of your life. So improving and enhancing and being the most fulfilling life you can have at your best.
Mm-hmm. Then for your spiritual motivation, I think I said it even in defining what your spiritual wellness is based on. It's about Jesus. 1 John 4:19 says we love because Jesus first loved us. And if you back up just a few verses from that, you start to see what it means that Jesus loved us. It's that he displayed his life, a perfect sinless life. He died in our place so that we could take the benefit of his sinless life, and then he resurrects to defeat death so that we don't have to endure spiritual death and separation from God. And so our motivation in being well is being able to love ourselves, yes, but also to love the world around us in the same way that Jesus has loved us.
Yeah, and another thing to kind of think about with what is the motivation for a Christian, wellness as a Christian is to practice good stewardship of what God has given to you.
Yes.
And that includes your own self, your own body, your own spirit. And what we do with ourselves. I think we talked about self-care in one of our previous episodes. And I just think that in our culture that we've gotten to the point where we almost don't care. We don't care about our health and well-being. We don't care about, how we can live that abundant life in Jesus by taking care of our bodies. Our bodies are a gift, and YOLO, you only live once. Like, seriously, you're only given one body, and God has a purpose for you on this earth. So how can you steward this body well and take care of this temporary gift that God has given you until you do reach heaven and have a new body?
All right, so since we're talking about using our bodies to represent Jesus and all of these different forms of what it means to be well, so let's define wellness biblically, and I think that's best done through the word shalom. Shalom is a Hebrew word, and we most typically kind of translate it as peace, but its deeper meaning, fuller meaning is it's about completeness and fulfillment. So shalom is about being complete and being full. Well, where do we find completion and fulfillment as a believer? We find that in Jesus. We find the peace that he gives to us as believers. He gives us a sense of peace even in the midst of the craziest of moments because we are taking what he gives to us. But that peace, that wellness, it's not just automatic. Think of it in the same terms of the churchy word we'll often use of sanctification, talking about becoming like Jesus.
It's a pursuit.
It's a pursuit. Sanctification is this whole process of becoming sinless like Jesus is. In the eyes of God, we are 100% sinless as far as our relationship with him goes, but because we still live within this world that's full of sin and brokenness, we're still having to deal with that process of actually getting there physically. The same is true of our peace and our wellness. Jesus gives us a peace. Jesus gives us wellness in each of these 8 different areas, but because we're still living in a world full of sin and brokenness, we're actually still in the journey in this moment. Physically, when we reach new heavens and new earth, you're not even going to need to work out because your body's perfect. But currently, we live in a world that's deteriorating, thus we do things to take care of our bodies. And you could have that conversation with each and every part or each and every dimension of wellness where, yes, in heaven, in new heavens, new earth, that's going to be fully taken care of. But right now, we're having to work through this.
Yeah, I think just like as we realize, like we live in a broken world, and I'll bring up the fact that the wellness industry is polluted. Like it's not, it's not all good. So you have to be very careful with the wellness messages that you take in. And but that brings me to my point to say that we're in a broken world and everything is not perfect. So as we pursue wellness, it's not that we're pursuing perfection. In the same way as we're pursuing sanctification, we are pursuing holiness as Jesus was holy, as God is holy, but knowing that we need all the grace in the world and the mercy that God can give us to get us one day to heaven, but to do the best we can while we're on this earth.
I think maybe good way to say all this is Christian wellness comes from a place of appreciating the forgiveness and the salvation and the eternal life that we have in Jesus, and that's only given when we surrender to him. And so this Christian wellness involves us being aware of the different levels of health and well-being in each dimension of our life and making a choice to improve in any areas that we might be lacking. And why do we do that? Because we want a proper balance between all of these areas of our lives to improve our overall health, our overall well-being, so that we can fully worship God with all that we are, so that we can become more effective in serving our neighbors and becoming stewards of the things that God has given us, which is all of these 8 different areas of our life.
Right. And one thing I just wanted to point out that, wellness is not the absence of, it's not the absence of brokenness. Like I said, we will never reach perfection, but wellness is not the absence of disability or disease or developmental delay. That's not, wellness is just in what you are and what you have. That body that you've been given is that stewardship and that pursuit to, take care of yourself, as an appreciation for the life that you've been given, the eternal life that you've been given. So I guess I say that because as one who lives with an autoimmune disorder, like I'm not technically without illness. that doesn't mean I can't pursue wellness with what I deal with on a daily basis with type 1 diabetes. I can still pursue wellness. You're not excluded from being able to pursue wellness, no matter what circumstance you're in. And what I'm saying by that again is just taking care of the body that God has given you.
For sure. So we're going to talk about all 8 of these different dimensions of wellness throughout the next episodes that we have. Each episode will talk about a different dimension, and we're talking about each individual dimension because we want you to see how each one of these areas impacts your spiritual life and impacts the way you serve Jesus. And we're also going to make sure we try to give you some ways to improve in each of these areas and kind of see some different ways to think about certain things. Like for episode 1, we're going to hop in with a friend of ours and talk about occupational wellness and give you some new lenses to kind of think about your occupation. So we're going to look at all of these different areas and see how they impact our spiritual life.
Yeah, so as we talk about all 8 dimensions of wellness, the goal here is just to help you improve your relationship with God, which then will improve your relationship with yourself and others around you. So you're not going to be hearing just from us. We have an interview coming up for the first part of occupational wellness, and we're going to have people on here that are going to talk about each dimension of wellness and their own expertise and their own experiences. So you get to have a new voices
Yep.
that you get to listen to so that you can hear about these 8 dimensions of wellness in a way that can maybe help you think about your wellness in a different light.
Awesome. Well, that was a good brief overview of all the things. But before we dip out, because it's been a month since you've heard from us, Virginia, what's messy in your life that you're loving?
This is a good question because I was not prepared. I think I was having a moment today where I was like, man, I really love this time of year, but I'm so sick of my throat hurting. Like, how can I love a season so much, but yet be so miserable on the inside? The pollen is killing me, and because our dryer's been broken and we've had to
Line dry
everything, I was drying off with a towel that had been line dried, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is setting off my allergies? And then I realized I was
using a towel
on my face that had been probably covered in pollen from being dried out on the line. So, also sucks that our dryer is broken, but we have a new one coming.
Yes.
Thank you, mother-in-law Tammy.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so messy is the fact that I love spring, but my allergies suck.
Fair. Makes sense.
Oh, I'm supposed to ask you.
Yes.
So what's messy in your life that you're loving, Tyler?
Ooh, I think the one my brain went to is our daughter's communication currently. She is reaching new words almost, it feels daily. She's finding new words. She's kind of learning some signs of sorts to kind of communicate with. And it's like this afternoon, I learned that she thinks more, the sign for more actually probably just means feed me in her brain. And so while she was upset that we were in the process of cooking dinner and not actually eating dinner, she was signing more like crazy while being super frustrated.
She was very hungry, bless her heart.
She was hungry and she wanted to eat. And
so Mama gave her an appetizer.
You did, and you did a great job of it. But yeah, it's a little messy in that she knows she's capable of communicating, but she's not actually sure how to communicate what she wants. But at the same time, it's a lot of fun just listening to her learn new things, like I said, pretty much daily.
Yeah, it's a really grace-filled experience. And I've heard parents talk about this stage many times, and that, it's just really frustrating because the poor child wants to tell you something, is trying to tell you something, but they just haven't figured it out yet. But with grace and patience and, all the love in the world that we can give her.
100%.
It's a really cool process. So
yeah, for sure. Well, thank you guys for joining us for the kickoff of this new series. We told you that we had a big announcement coming at the end, and here it is. We're going to start dropping episodes every 2 weeks instead of every single week. It'll still be on Fridays, but we kind of felt like to keep our schedule from not being ridiculously crazy and to also make sure we're giving you quality content and just not a ton of content. We're going to go to every 2 weeks and make sure it's good when it comes to you guys. So instead of hearing from us next Friday, you're going to hear from us again 2 Fridays from now, and that's when the first interview for the 8 Dimensions of Wellness will drop. Well, thanks for joining us. If you want to keep up with us, you can find all of our things at bowlsoflife.com. You can subscribe wherever you are. That way you don't forget in 2 weeks that the next episode is dropping. Be sure to tell some friends all about this new series coming up. Give us a rating and a review. And while you're on bowlsoflife.com seeing all the other things in our lives, make sure you take the moment to swing by the podcast tab and record yourself telling us what's messy in your life that you are loving. We'll see you guys again soon.
Bye.